What's up guys, my name is JPZ and welcome to a series called JPZ Makes It Easy, where I walk you through each part becoming a solid Siege player. The goal of this video is to help you get your settings to the most optimal place, or if you're just starting to play Siege, get set up before starting your Siege journey. Get started, let's go into the settings. Top right hand corner, click on the little gear, then to options. Here you'll see all the settings of Rainbow Six Siege: gameplay, audio, display, graphics, controls. And we'll start here with gameplay. The very first setting is squad privacy. Here it dictates the way your friends list functions, whether or not your friends on your list are able to join you with an invite or without. This basically makes it an open lit party, and this I recommend keeping it to invite only. That way people that you add to your friends list don't join randomly. Next, open up your matchmaking preferences. Here you will set the game modes that you are willing to play. I only play bomb, so that's the only thing that's set for me. That's the competitive game mode. It's where most of the best balance are for the maps. If you want a little more variety, you can turn on secure area. The sites are typically in different rooms and have some different types of gameplay elements to them. I never recommend turning on hostage. It's straight garbage. Next is where you set the game mode of Terrace Hunt. I use Terrace Hunt as a aim training, so I only use Terrace Hunt Classic. That's where they only spawn enemies. There's no objective besides clear the entire map. The following objectives are a little bit different. The extract hostage, it's very similar to Classic. You can actually play it the same, where you clear the entire map and then grab the hostage you're running out. But to me, it's just an extra step. Protect the hostage is the only one of the game modes where you play as the defenders. So if you want to test out guns and defenders, that's the one you need to turn on. And disarm bomb is you play as the offense and you plant a bomb and then waves of enemies try to come and defuse it. And then in terms of which maps you play on Terrace Hunt, this is where you set that. At first, I recommend turning most of these maps on because you'll be playing casual and you'll have to know the maps that you're going to be playing on. Things like house, yacht, canal. You can always turn off Bartlett because it is not in any of the map pools. Favela, tower, even though a lot of people don't like it. And the rest of them are going to be in ranked. So once you go into the ranked pool and you start playing almost ranked exclusively and you want to drill down and learn those maps more, then you can go ahead and do what I did: turn off house, turn off presidential plane, and all the other maps that are casual only. Link in the description down below of the full list of maps that are in casual and ranked and the differences between those. Going back to the gameplay menu, the next one is interface preferences. Here you should most likely keep things on by default. The only thing that I changed here was teammate outlines. I have an issue with distances of that people are from my target and making sure I don't TK the people. So I turned that off so that way I could better judge the distance with their name over their head. Overall though, I would keep it on default unless you are trying to get into a competitive environment. There are a separate settings for the competitive environment, which includes go-fors, any type of ESL matches in Pro League. If you are interested in those settings, I will provide those in a link down below. Moving back to the main menu, last three options. Ping here is being able to send and receive a yellow pointer on the map. So say, for example, you kill someone with a diffuser and you want to point to your teammates exactly where it is on the ground so they're aware and they can set up to refrag when someone goes to pick up the diffuser. You can ping a little yellow pointer I will display here onto the map, and turning that on allows you to ping and also allows you to see teammates pings. Display game info allows this little menu down here in the bottom left hand corner, shows your FPS, shows your ping, and whatever version it is, kind of irrelevant here. I keep it for the FPS and ping in order so I make sure I don't have any system issues or latency issues that are causing me to either drop frames or lag and stuff like that. Last but most important setting in this group is the cycle inside camera groups. So as an Echo main, I have two drones to control, and this allows me to, when I press Q and E, to switch back and forth between them. If I was to hit E twice, it would go back and forth between two cameras. It would not change to a different camera group, which would be, for example, the default cams. So in a tense moment when I'm trying to swap between the two cameras and stop for someone from planting, I can do so with the press of, double tapping E in this case. And I wouldn't have to cycle through all the default cameras. So I highly recommend turning that on. Onto audio. Majority of this is going to be personal preference in terms of master volume levels, dialogue option volume. All the different volumes are going to be based on your audio settings and stuff like that, but I'll go into the ones which I highly recommend you set and what they mean. Subtitles, English, language of your choice. Subtitles I typically turn off. Music volume, I always have music off so I have the least amount of background distractions when I'm playing so I can hear everything. And dynamic range is where things get a little more interesting. These are the way that the audio is output through your headphones or speakers, whatever the case, whatever you're listening to. By the way, I highly recommend headphones. My TLDR of it, hi-fi makes the explosions and gunfire louder, where the footsteps are more quieter. TV is a balance, and night mode quiets the gunshots, explosions, and all that type of stuff, and ups the volume of the people's footprints. Now, in a sound-based game like this is, you're probably asking, JP, why are you using TV and not night mode if you want to hear footsteps and people creeping up on you? Well, the issue I had with night mode is that it makes the footsteps to me too loud, and I had an issue judging the distance of where people were. They always sound like they were on top of me. So for my personal preference, I put it to TV, and I found it to have the highest accuracy of where people are in my surroundings. Voice chat volume, I highly recommend not putting at 100 so people don't blow out your eardrums when they yell and scream. I highly recommend that. Voice chat record mode, push to talk for all things holy. Please use push to talk so that you don't display your audio to everyone at all times. And people walk into your room, you hear background noise, everything like that. Keep it to push to talk. Voice record level, I always keep that to 100. Voice chat threshold, that's if you use voice activation, which you shouldn't have to do. That finishes up audio. Next, we'll move on to display settings. I always recommend using full screen as it will give you the highest possible frame rates. Refresh rate should be whatever the refresh rate is of your monitor. Since I just swapped this, it went down to 60, although that is not my settings here. Always put whatever the highest possible refresh rate is that your monitor can handle. Mine is 144 hertz monitor, so that's what I use. I just keep it on resolution. Some people use 5.4. 4.3 is pretty popular. I would recommend keeping it with resolution for now until you basically do a little more research and dig into the pros and cons of them. I plan on doing a video on this, comparing and contrasting in the future. I will link to this video once that gets made. But moving on to the next setting, VSync. Always turn this off, because basically what it does is it causes a delay in the frames being rendered. So you'll see the object on screen a little slower if you turn on 1 frame or 2 frame VSync. Letterbox, this kind of turns on the kind of cinematic black bars in the bottom of the screens. I do not recommend ever turning this on, so always keep that off. Field of view. Field of view is more of a personal preference. By default, I think it's 60. I turned it to 75. Most people typically recommend 90, so you have the widest side distances, but I found a hard time judging the distance that the targets were from me. I found 75 to be a nice balance between the two, and it feels a little more realistic to me in regard to that. And I don't really ever have an issue of seeing things to my sides personally. And the last option in display is calibration. Calibration is basically set up your brightness. By default, it's 50. I put it a little bit higher. That way I could brighten up some of the dark corners and see some of the darker enemies. For example, if Vigil's hiding in a corner, I did 60. You can go as high as you want. I don't recommend being this bleached out. 60 keeps the game fidelity looking good, as well as brightening up some of those corners. This is a long, detailed section of things to break down. I'll show you what my settings are. I have a pretty beefy video card with RX Vega. I can handle some pretty high textures. If you can't lower this down, it takes up a lot of less video memory, depending on what you have. Texture filtering will make the textures more clear. I went with 8x. 16x I felt a little bit much. My performance wasn't too much of a difference, but enough for me to notice, so I went down to 8x. LOD quality is going to be the distance at which the game renders high quality meshes. So you'll notice that there's some distance to which you see certain textures. So when you're looking at a pixel peak from a far distance, I found the higher LOD quality makes it easier to see targets from a further distance. So I keep that on ultra. Shading quality high. I like things to be a little pretty. If you have an issue with this, you can lower it even here, but I didn't see too much of a performance drop. So I recommend high. Shadow quality. Shadows usually wreak havoc on your frames. But having very high here is pretty taxing. So I went with medium because low turns off shadows altogether. And having your shadows on, you can actually see people come around corners in certain parts, depending on where they are in the map and the lighting. You can actually get some free kills by seeing their shadow ahead of time and pre-firing. So I always recommend to have the, at minimum, medium. If you can handle it, go higher if you want things to be a little prettier. Friction quality, I didn't see any difference between the three. I recommend low, just a little bit of frames. Ambient occlusion just kind of tanks your frames for no benefit. Not really much going on here. I recommend off. Same thing with lens effect. It's actually detrimental to your view. It gives you like a J.J. Abrams lens flare effect for no reason. Off there. Zoom in depth of field, same thing. Blurs your outside when you're zooming in. Off, it's going to make seeing targets harder, so off. TAA gives the highest performance benefit here, and also off makes it a little bit blurry. So I use TAA and I use render scaling at 50. If your computer can handle it a little more, you want things to look a little prettier, jack that up. But I want to be able to make sure I can constantly be over 144 frames when I'm in game, and then keep the sharpness at 100 so that way it looks as clear as possible. That's my little TLDR graphics. If you want more detail and some examples showing the details of which of all these settings here, and I'll link to Road 9's video going into all of that. Last menu here is controls, and we'll start from the top and work our way down. First is raw input mouse and keyboard. This is, I recommend this being on. This basically turns on the direct input from your mouse and keyboard into the game. Separates the middleman of software in the mix. More accurate, more precise. Recommend turning it on. Mouse look inversion basically makes your mouse, if you push up, it goes down, down goes up. I never recommend turning that on at all. And now for the kind of the meat and potatoes of the control area. These three settings control your mouse sensitivity. This is the thing you'll tweak and mess around with for many, many times. So I'm going to go into a total separate video, go into all the details around mouse sensitivity and finding your sensitivity for you. I will link that in the description down below, or the cards in the top right hand corner. But for now, a little TLDR, I'm using this is basically a 6.2, 6.2. Always have these the same, by the way, which is because I'm using a different modifier in order to make it more precise. And my aim down sight is 47, which is around half of what this is. Next is mouse scroll. I always recommend disabling mouse scroll. I've seen many people try and switch to their sidearm after their primary is emptied, only to accidentally switch back to their primary and then die because of it when using their mouse wheel. I recommend using the 1 and 2 keys on your keyboard to be more precise on which weapon you're swapping to. It'll do a lot better for you in the long run. Gadget deployment, recommend doing advanced. Allows you to cancel the deployment of your gadget in the middle in case someone's, you hear someone running up on you when you're deploying something. It allows you to be a little more precise and be able to react on the fly. Same with drone deployment, same idea. It allows you to separate the animation of the droning process. It allows you to throw out the drone and not instantly have to go on it. So you press the drone button, it throws the drone, then you can have your gun up instantaneously. So you can kind of toss it and see if anyone's going to push on you. And then once you know you're safe, then press your drone button and get back onto it, and then drone in safety. Now for your other control options, you have aim, hold, allows you to hold the button down while you're aiming, allows you a little more precision so you don't accidentally double click on aim and then scope in and scope back out at an unopportune time, allowing you to basically kill more things. Next is lean. I recommend toggle. That's what I've been using. I don't know many people who use hold. I saw someone on YouTube that died because they accidentally let go of their button while holding lean. I recommend toggle because it allows you to lean to one side and then move. We have your basically fingers free to control movement. Sprint, I recommend hold. That way you can precisely let go of your sprint button when you need to and don't sprint for too long. Crouch is toggle, very similar to the idea of lean. That way you can crouch and then have free movement to move around while crouched. Prone, same thing. You want to not like accidentally hold the button or let go too early and stand up when you don't mean to. Press the button, press it again if you want to get up, or press a different button. So if you want to sprint, you can get up and sprint from from prone, or crouch, or whatever your precise movement will be. And walk, I do hold, that way you can walk and then let go to move a little bit faster at a precise time. Next and bottom option of controls is your customized controls. This section is pretty close to the most personal preference area. These are my settings. A lot of them are default, some are custom. I will go through each and every one in case you're curious, but a majority of these are going to be what you feel comfortable with. So starting from the top, scoreboard, default tab, ping, Z, I think that's default. I don't remember if that's default, but that's what I use. Z, chat, T and Y, team, and all. My push to talk is F9. That seems kind of random of moving your mouse. You're probably trying to use your finger right now across your keyboard and try and press it. But I have F9 bound to a foot pedal, which I purchased. I can link in the description from I bought that on Amazon if you're curious. I don't like pressing buttons when I need to talk, so I bought a foot pedal so I don't have to. So that's I have that foot pedal bound to F9. That's why it's there. Standard WASD for strafe, forward, back. QE for lean left and lean right. Repel, shift for fast repel or ladder descent. Most of the stuff is typical. Crouch and repel change is C. X for prone, Alt for walk, left click for shoot, right click for aim, R for reload, F for interact, V for melee. Primary gadget and secondary gadget I have on the thumb buttons of my Death Adder. The primary being the top thumb button, the secondary being the bottom one. And the rest are pretty standard. 5 for observation tools, 6 for deploy drone, 1 and 2 for primary secondary. I have B to switch firing mode and weapon swap on period, which I don't think I've ever used in my life because I didn't know that keybind was there. I just use 1 and 2 for changing weapons. And the observation tools, I think most of this here, yeah, enemy scans, control, all of this is default. Standard settings. Got page down for zoom in, zoom out, move floors. All these are default settings. Hopefully this video brought value to you. If you have any questions or any specific content you'd like me to cover in future videos, please leave a comment down below. If you want to see more content, both basic and beyond, subscribe and click the bell to see when my videos go live. Thank you and take it easy.